What's going on, y'all? This is the Infinity World Morning Show. My name is Trey Divorce. I hope everybody waking up feeling highly blessed and highly favored. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling blessed. I'm feeling highly favored. You feel me? Before we start, please like, please share, and please subscribe. Matter of fact, right now, go ahead and press that subscribe button right now. If you ain't subscribed right now, go ahead and press that thing right now. But anyway, let's get to it, man. Like I said, I'm having a great day. I'm having a blessed day. The weather's feeling great. The weather's great out here. It's like 50, 60 degrees right now. It's still kind of cold, but it feels good. Last night it was hella cold. It was like 20, 30 degrees. I was freezing. I was freezing. But I'm up now. My mouth still kind of hurt. I took some medicine and I'm feeling kind of drowsy, but we going to get through this. And oh, yeah, shouts out to the girl who did my hair. You did a hell of a job. You did a hell of a job. Shout out to you. You feel me? I ain't gonna lie. You was living in the trenches. When you gave me the address and I pulled up, it was called the Colonies, right? It was called the Colonies. It was like little houses, little condo houses everywhere. And there's none but black people around there. It's none but black people. All right? So when you drive all the way to the back of the Colonies, it's some apartments, some gated apartments. Now those apartments is the trenches. Those apartments is the trenches. I'm trying to tell you. So then when I pull up, right? Pull up, got to the house, you know, uh it was so much in the trench. She wasn't even like her cigarette up. You feel me, with the lighter. She was using the stove. Now she using the oven. You feel me? She was like her cigarettes up in the oven. I was like, oh yeah, I gotta get up out of here. This is crazy. So as she was doing my hair, right? As she was doing my hair, she was drinking out of a cup of water. And when I looked up, I seen a roach on a cup of water. I was like, oh man, do she see this roach? I can't believe this is happening. Like this is crazy. So then, so then, so then, she didn't see. I'm thinking in my head, she gotta see this roach. She gotta see this roach. I don't know, like she gotta see it. Maybe she just not paying attention or she embarrassed, so she just don't ignore it. I'm thinking like, please, I hope this roach just fly away. It was one of the roaches that had wings. You know, some roaches know how to fly. Some roaches be flying. You feel me? So it was one of the roaches that be flying. So I'm thinking like, dang, I hope this roach fly away. But nah, but it was getting close. It was climbing up the cup and it was getting closer to the top. You know where you drink out of. I was like, oh my gosh, if she don't know this roach is on her cup and she's drinking out of this cup, this is gonna be freaking disgusting. I said, please see this roach. Please do something with this roach. I didn't want to say nothing because I didn't want to embarrass her. So then she walked away. I think she had to go get some more grease or something. She had to get a comb, something. She had went to the bathroom. So I hurry up and flick the roach across the room real quick off her cup. Uh, so I didn't kill the roach, so the roach still in there somewhere chilling. But you know, you feel me? I had to get the roach up out of there. I couldn't take it no more. I couldn't take it. I couldn't take it. And she drunk out of the cup. But I didn't say nothing. After all that, when she came back, she drank some more water out that cup. I was disgusted and I was ready to get up out of there. I was so thankful when she was done. I was so thankful. I got up. Harry got my backpack real quick. You feel me? I take my backpack everywhere with me. Harry got my backpack real quick. I'm out. Peace. Appreciate it. And you know how some people want to ask for a ride? So she was like, "What she trying?" She was like, "What she about to do?" I was like, "Shit, I'm about to go back home. I'm about to go chill." I was like, "What she about to do?" She was like, "I'm trying to figure out what I'm about to eat." I could tell she wanted to ask for a ride to go get something to eat. But I was like, "Nah, I need to. I got it. I'm about to leave." I'm about to leave, bro. I need buy you some cigarettes. We gotta talk about that. Some of y'all neighborhood braid dealers. Now some of y'all neighborhood braid dealers. You feel me? Y'all be asking for too much. Then sometimes y'all be late on the appointment. Sometimes y'all reschedule appointments all the time. You feel me? Like then when niggas about to pull up, hey, can you stop at the store and get me this and that? Like damn. I gotta stop at the store, get this and that. Then I gotta pay you for the braids, for you to braid my shit. Like, damn, bruh. This is crazy. On top of that, you got. Nah, I ain't gonna. But shout out to her though. Shout out to her, man. I appreciate it because she really did a hell of a job. I'm just, it was a roast in there, but I'm just joking for real. But we gonna get to the topic. Let's get to the topic. Last week we talked about how the government systematically used the welfare money to get fathers out of the home, and we seen how years and years and years of that changed the whole mindset in the black community from black women and black men. Black women start saying, I don't need a man. Black men start saying, fuck it, I'm leaving, I'm out. That's when niggas in the 80s, that's when niggas start really leaving. Like niggas just really start, it was like a whole mindset change. So now we're gonna figure out how they use welfare money to systematically sterilize black women. How they systematically sterilize black women, and how they use dog whistles and keywords so they don't automatically come out and say, look, this is what we're doing to y'all black women. They use dog whistles and keywords, to get their message out there. So we're gonna figure all that out. I like to go back and look all the way to the back where it all started, where it all began. So we probably gonna go back to the 1800s, close to slavery days, and see where that cycle was, see where the cracks start. But first we gotta learn what eugenics is, and we gotta learn what who Margaret Sanger is. Those are important people to know. That's an important person to know, Margaret Sanger. So we're gonna start with this video. I'm gonna try not to talk too much because my mouth do hurt still. So let's get to it.
The term eugenics is basically a set of beliefs and practices that aim to improve the genetic quality of a human population. There have been various applications of eugenics, perhaps the most famous being the Germans before and during World War II, which was condemned by the Nuremberg war crimes trials. But the Germans did not invent eugenics. In fact, they were inspired by the founder of the taxpayer-funded Planned Parenthood. The truth behind the genesis of that organization and its founder are much darker than most Americans realize. Who was the real Margaret Sanger? Why was she heralded by the Third Reich as the greatest socialist in America? Why do modern Democrats who claim to support the African American population justify presenting her as a cultural icon?
For 17.
The term eugenics.
Those are good questions to ask. Who's Margaret Sanger? Why do the Democrats put her up as a cultural icon when Hitler and the Nazis loved her and openly talked about their love about her? So why do they praise her? And this is the person that they said started Planned Parenthood, but we about to find out she wasn't the person who started Planned Parenthood. We about to go real deep into this, and then we're gonna make our way back into the 1970s all the way to the 2023. But we about to get real deep into it because, to be honest, she wasn't the founder. She was the front man, and we're gonna get into it. Let's get to it. Let's get to the next video.
Uncommon within the American.
Shout out to Point of View TV. Shout out to Point of View TV, man. They really bring out some good information on here. We're gonna start from right here. Let's get it.
Swahili word. It's called the Ma'afa, and it began when the first Africans were shackled to the bottom of a slave ship. But the irony is that it did not end when the slaves were freed. In fact, it hasn't ended yet. And as you're about to see, a hidden racial agenda is keeping the Ma'afa alive into the 21st century.
What shall be done with the 4 million slaves if they are emancipated? This question has been answered and can be answered in many ways. Primarily, it is a question less for man than for God, less for human intellect than for the laws of nature to solve. Our answer is, do nothing with them. Mind your business and let them mind theirs. Your doing with them is their greatest misfortune. They have been undone by your doings, and all they now ask and really have need of at your hands is just to let them alone. Frederick Douglass, 1862.
It is the stupidity of man.
It's D what, Frederick Douglass said, because we still say that today. Black people still say, we just want to be left alone today. So even back then in slavery times, and even a little bit after slavery times, and all the way up till now, black people have been saying, we just want to be left alone and let us do us. When y'all let us do us, we do great things. But if y'all continue to mess with us and do this crazy shit to us, right, you're going to see all the madness and chaos that comes in our community. But if y'all just leave us alone, we will be perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. And there's plenty of examples of that throughout our history. So that was deep with Frederick Douglass.
To think that he can do evil, even some monstrous evil, and it won't have any backlash on himself. But of course, it seldom works that way. And the moment he figures that out, he starts looking for a way to avoid the repercussions of what he's done. This is what happened with slavery. In the early 1800s, as it began to look like the end of slavery might be on the horizon, white America started to be concerned that a day of reckoning was coming. The primary fear for the average person was of retribution and insurrection, and that was a reasonable fear. After all, it's illogical to think that you can do to a whole group of people what was done to African Americans and think that they will just take it lying down forever. And of course, there were things like the Nat Turner uprisings. But for the wealthy elite, their fears went beyond things like insurrection. They were worried about the financial impact. Remember, it was not just the cotton plantations that profited from slavery. Whether you're talking about the banks or the insurance companies, the railroads, even the newspapers, the fact is that almost every aspect of the American economy was at some level or another invested in the slave business. You also need to recognize that for the wealthy elitist who controlled this system, slaves were an asset as long as they were slaves. But at the moment they are set free, they become a liability. And
it's so heavy from what he's saying because, for a minute now, black people been saying, yo, give us our, I keep forgetting this word. But give us our money. We give us our money for everything this government has done to us. So when we say we want, man, what is that word? I cannot think of that word. So when black people, when black people say we give us our money because this is what America has done to us, we're not talking about, the regular white man or white woman just walking down the street. We're actually talking about the actual government, because the government benefited extremely well off the backs of our ancestors. America wouldn't be America if it wasn't for our ancestors. There wouldn't be no banks everywhere. There wouldn't be none of this that we see today if it wasn't for our ancestors. America wouldn't be looked at as the number one power in the world if it wasn't for our ancestors. So because of that, run that money. Run the money. We need all of that. We're not talking about little Sally and little Adam walking around. We talking about Sally Mae, the government. Give us all of that, Sally Mae. We talking about the government. So yeah, man. You see, y'all heard, yeah. Get to it.
And what the elite knew was that the end of slavery would instantly release 4 million people into the economy who had been kept uneducated and effectively unemployable anywhere but the cotton field. And what they were concerned about was that this was going to bankrupt the American economy. Taxes were going to go through the roof to take care of these people. Crime was going to be rampant. The prisons were going to be flooded. There was going to be this population overrun. And in the North, the biggest fear was migration from the South of these black people. The other fear that these people had was intermarriage between blacks and whites would lead to a loss of racial purity. The question was, what were they going to do about it? And their initial thought was that they would just send all the slaves back to Africa. This plan was called colonization, and it had broad support among the wealthy elite. In fact, the American Colonization Society was even funded by the United States Congress. But in the end, colonization proved to be unworkable, and the idea was eventually scrapped. But about that same time, a new philosophy was emerging in the world. It was called eugenics, and for some, it seemed like the perfect solution to what had become known as the Negro dilemma.
So sending us back to Africa didn't work. And, you know, if y'all don't know the history behind that, y'all should go look that up because it's a wild history. And, you know, it's good to know. But sending us back to Africa didn't help. So now we about to look at what they start doing and what they doing now. Now we about to get into it.
I do not join in the belief that the African is our equal in brain or in heart. And I believe that if we can, in any fair way, possess ourselves of his services, we have an equal right to utilize them to our advantage. Francis Galton, 1857.
Francis Galton is known as the father of eugenics. He actually coined the phrase eugenics. So he believed in trying to increase those he felt were superior in stock and decrease those he felt were inferior. Francis Galton came from a very wealthy family, a family that made its wealth from the slave trade. And what a lot of people don't know is that Francis Galton was a cousin to Charles Darwin. Francis Galton took Charles Darwin's philosophies and ideas and thoughts, and he actually put them into practice, and that's what we know today as eugenics. Eugenics and evolution are related in that they both see what they consider to be the highest form of primate, such as the gorilla, as almost indistinguishable from what they consider the lowest form of human, the African and the Aborigine.
At some future period, not very distant as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace the savage races throughout the world. The break between man and his nearest allies will then be wider, for it will intervene between man and a more civilized state, and some ape as low as a baboon instead of as now between the Negro or Australian and the gorilla. Charles Darwin, 1890.
Y'all remember that name, Francis Galton? And it's so crazy that they teach us Charles Darwin in school. That y'all remember learning about Darwinism and things like that in school, and they celebrate this man and act like this man is the most intellectual, one of the greatest thinkers ever, and he's one of the most racist people ever that wanted to exterminate us and thought about us in the most lowest way. And then they turn around and teach us this man and want us to celebrate this man in school. This is why I've always said that more and more black people, we should start homeschooling. More and more black people should start homeschooling. They are teaching our kids about a man who wants to exterminate them. And telling them this is a great man. He was a great man who did great things. This is what they taught us in school, but really he wanted to exterminate us and kill us and thought the lowest of us. It's crazy.
Charles Darwin is very well known for writing The Origin of Species in the 1800s. This book gave rise to evolutionary theory. What people don't know is that there was actually a longer original title to this book, and that was On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or the Preservation of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life. Now, copies and editions that they made afterwards eliminated that phrase about the favored races. Evidently, they understood then that it was politically incorrect.
Some may defend Francis Galton because eventually that he rejected slavery, but they do point out that all of his wealth did derive from the slave trade, but also it needs to be known that he, as well as other eugenists, did not reject slavery until after it had ended, and they could not any longer exploit blacks legally. So at that point, it would have been quite easy for he and his cohorts to reject slavery. I think this is a point that we all have to really realize, that the eugenics movement was not invented by the everyday average white American, but by a select group of wealthy white elitists that had often used this ideology to pit all of white America against black America. And so we see that indeed that truly is the case even to this day.
Average Negroes possess too little intellect, self-reliance, and self-control to make it possible for them to sustain the burden of any respectable form of civilization without a large measure of external guidance and support. Francis Galton,
This is how they think now. This is how they think, and this is how they move now. And we see that America, this government does that all over this world. They think, oh, these people are savages. These people don't know how to really live. We got to go over there and civilize them and give them a real democracy so they can have real elections and stuff like that. That's how America be moving now.
1873.
Eugenicists believed that Africans were inferior not just mentally, but physically, and that left to themselves, left alone, they would not make it. The problem is, it didn't work. With that failure, the eugenicists moved on to what is known as positive eugenics. In positive eugenics, the eugenicists wanted the white population to reproduce, to have so many children that it overwhelmed the black population. But that didn't work either. Next, they moved on to what they called negative eugenics. They knew that they could not round up all the blacks in the nation and execute them, so they decided to create an environment where they would convince the blacks to severely limit the number of children they were going to have, and thereby commit race suicide.
Y'all remember she said that. Y'all remember she says they severely put them in an environment that will affect them to have kids, that will affect them to have children. And then that would inevitably commit race suicide. Y'all remember she says that.
The problem of the socially fit must be treated not as one of color, but as a problem of the spread of feeble-mindedness. Dr. Charles Davenport, 1913, director of the Eugenics Record Office, Cold Spring Harbor, New York, and co-founder of the American Eugenics Society.
The eugenics realized that they could not promote their agenda simply because they knew it would be viewed as politically incorrect and socially unacceptable. So what they did was use code words that were once successful in slavery, terms such as feeble-minded, unfit, words such as imbecile, immoral, criminal. They tagged those labels upon the targeted community. These words were less inflammatory, so it let society more or less not be totally alarmed of the original intent, but deep down inside, I believe everyone truly knew what segment of society and what people they were actually talking about.
That's the game they run now. They call the Muslims terrorists. They say thugs. When you hear thugs, you think you know who they talking about. They got little code words. Criminal. When you think about criminal, you think about a certain group of people. They got code words now that they use. They don't never just come out and say it. Black people, Muslims. They say terrorists. You feel me? They got code words now. They do the same. They got the same game plan now.
Cursory glance at the charts, photographs, and diagrams used to popularize eugenic ideals reveals that the unfit were swarthy, black, and ugly by Anglo-Saxon standards, with flat noses, wiry hair, and prognathous profiles. Harriet Washington, author, Medical Apartheid.
In the early 20th century, the white elitists who made up the eugenics movement were no longer just philosophers and academics. Now they were industrialists and billionaires who had come to embrace a worldview that was essentially identical to the eugenics movement. The same individuals and corporations who had once made millions on the backs of slaves were now willing to spend millions to get rid of them. But that didn't mean that these guys were interested in being public crusaders for the eugenics movement. They were certainly willing to be the brains and the money behind it, but they would hire crusaders to do the dirty work. And the primary one they settled upon was a woman named Margaret Sanger. She was the founder of the American Birth Control League and the publisher of its newsletter, the Birth Control Review. On a practical level, the relationship between Sanger and these elitists was basically a marriage of convenience. In order to advance their common agendas, They needed a front man, and she needed money. And the whole thing would be held together by this kind of bizarre obsession with race and class. The result was that the American Birth Control League became the driving force behind the American eugenics movement. Eugenics would no longer just be a philosophy. Sanger and others like her were going to put it into practice.
We are paying.
All right, so now I told y'all, remember Margaret Sanger? She's real important. So now that slavery's over, you know, like Ben said, they spent millions to get slaves, but now they're willing to spend millions to kill them off. Now they don't know what to do. Slavery's over. They don't know what to do with these black people. So now, first, let's send them back to Africa. That didn't work. Second, maybe we should let's promote white people having more babies, so we could overpopulate the black population. We just have so much babies, we just overpopulate them. That didn't work. Now let's just get rid of them niggas. Fuck it. Let's just kill them. Let's just get rid of them niggas. But we're gonna do it covertly. We ain't gonna just do it outright. We're gonna do it covertly. We're gonna kill them, and we're gonna kill them silently.
For and even submitting to the dictates of an ever-increasing, unceasingly spawning class of human beings who never should have been born at all. Margaret Sanger, 1922.
The laws of nature require the obliteration of the unfit, and human life is valuable only when it is of use to the community or race. Madison Grant, 1916, co-founder, American Eugenics Society.
The black man has never been a competitor, but has always been subservient to the white race. And just so long as he remains subservient, his position is secure. And just so soon as he becomes a competitor, his fate is sealed. Dr. Benjamin.
This is a heavy quote, because he's saying as long as we stay, you know, as like Clone Tyrone, as long as we stay in those positions like Clone Tyrone, you know, we cool. They stay positioned and secure. But as soon as they rise up and figure out who they is, it's go time, it's war time. We got to kill them. As long as they subservient, as long as they cool with their role of being in the lower class at the bottom, we good. As long as they cool with just serving us, making music for us, dancing and chucking and jiving for us, doing everything for us, we good. But as soon as them niggas come up and try to take over and be a competitor with us, it's race war time. He said their fate is sealed. What y'all think that means?
Benjamin Hayes, eugenicist, 1905.
The American Birth Control League was wise enough to get their program of population control across by using what had worked in the past. The same code words that had established the institution of slavery and that was also used by the early eugenics movement was once again used by the American Birth Control League. The Margaret Sangers of those days did not come out and say they were trying to eliminate black people. What they did say, they were trying to rid society of the feeble-minded. They were trying to rid the society of the criminal. Well, she was successful simply because of her eugenics friends for the past 50 years had put those labels on minorities and African Americans, and therefore society was more or less desensitized. In effect, the code words hid the agenda of Margaret Sanger and the eugenists. At that time, they did shift over to what they call the quality of life. It was a philosophy unquestionably used to target the poor simply because what the quality of life at its core meaning was that poor people really didn't have a reason to live. Only the white, those with status, had any chance of a meaningful or purposeful life. The solution for the poor now was not to eliminate the circumstances that would cause poverty. Their solution now was to eliminate the poor, eliminate the impoverished, and just wipe them off the face of the earth.
The practice of birth control among the majority of colored people would probably be more eugenic than among their white compatriots.
Y'all see the timeline of how we're gonna get to them sterilizing our women over welfare money, using welfare money to sterilize our women. Yeah, are y'all seeing how it's getting there? And remember those key words, those terms that they use: feeble-minded, basically slow, retarded. I mean, not retarded, but ill, ill-minded. You feel me? Remember those terms. The term welfare about to pop up. Remember all of those terms.
The dissemination of the information of birth control should have begun with this class, rather than with the upper social and economic classes of white citizens. Walter Turpening, Birth Control Review, 1932.
In virtually every community where Negroes dwell, one finds them, in fat times and lean alike, contributing a disproportionate number to the roles of the dependents and delinquents. They make excessive demands on the white man's charity and overtax his patients. Newell Sims, Birth Control Review, 1932.
Author Madison Grant was a co-founder of the American Eugenics Society and an officer of the New York Zoological Society. In 1906, he had authorized an exhibit at the Bronx Zoo in which a 22-year-old African named Oda Benga was displayed in a cage in the monkey house. Sharing the cage with Benga was an orangutan.
When a local clergyman protested the exhibit, he said that it was clearly intended to be a demonstration of Darwin's theory of evolution. Local proponents of Darwinism apparently agreed and labeled the display educational. 10 years after this event, Oda Benga committed suicide.
RP to Oda Banger, man. RP to Oda Banger, man. But I'm not trying to stop the video so much because I'm trying to get through this video. We're not about to watch the whole hour. But I just want to say that the last quote of that man saying that how we make demands on the we make demands on the white people and this and that and it's taxing and all that stuff. Honestly, and all honestly, black people we really want to just be left alone. Like in the beginning of the video, like Frederick Douglass said, we want to be left alone. But every time we left alone and do good, they come in and cause chaos. And then they create an environment, like the woman said before, they create an environment, a destitute, a survive, where you got to survive environment to the point where we do need the government. Y'all created an environment to the point where we do need the government. But when we was left alone to create our own environment and do our own thing and have our own culture, y'all came and destroyed it and caused chaos because y'all didn't want to see the black man rise, the black man and the black woman rise. Because like that man said, once we rise, we become competitors, and that's what they don't want that. They don't want us to be competitors.
During Hitler's regime, the Germans were supplied with elaborate charts and complicated theses supposedly proving the superiority of the German people. It is interesting to note that at the bottom of these charts were the colored people of the world, most conspicuously, the black people. Floyd McKissick, National Director.
Hold on, I just want to say this because we about to get to Hitler. In the last video, y'all remember that it said Hitler and the Nazis and them, they looked up to Margaret Sanger and all of the eugenics people, right? But I also want to say this: there's some black people, like, I ain't gonna name no names, but there's some black people that say, like he put on Facebook the other day, Hitler believed that the black people were the real Jews. There's some black people that kind of like celebrate Hitler in a way when they say things like that. But we are about to go over how Hitler hated black people. If Hitler did think we were the real Jews, right? It didn't matter to him because he still hated us. He did the most craziest things to us. He sterilized us. And guess where he got those ideas from? So it don't matter if Hitler thought we was the real Jews because he still hated us. It don't matter. He still was a powerful white man that hated us, no different than the rest of them.
Congress of Racial Equality, 1967.
An often overlooked fact about the German Holocaust is that the Nazis did not simply target the Jewish population. They went after the black community as well. Under the threat of being sent to concentration camps if they did not cooperate, Afro-German citizens were not only forced to undergo sterilization themselves, they were also required to turn over their children for sterilization. In his book Mein Kampf, Adolf Hitler explained the motivation behind such programs.
The Jews were responsible for bringing Negroes into the Rhineland. It suits the purpose of the cool, calculating Jew who would use this means of introducing a process of bastardization in the very center of the European continent, and, by infecting the white race with the blood of an inferior stock, would destroy the foundations of its independent existence. Adolf Hitler, Mein Kampf.
The Nazi attitude toward blacks was clearly defined in a 1944 book by Robert Ley, who was the head of the German Labor Front. Ley characterized the Jewish race as a disease-riddled parasite that had been created by unnatural inbreeding between white men and the racially inferior Negro. He described the result as a racial swamp that would eventually destroy the natural superiority of the Aryan race. Another Nazi publication described blacks as African brutes who had not been tamed even by centuries of slavery. It went on to say that any effort to assimilate people of African descent into civilized society was a waste of time, and that the lynchings of blacks in America did not merit any regret.
Since World War II, it has been well documented that Adolf Hitler was profoundly influenced by the American eugenics movement, and that many of his government...
Now that should show, some of you black people that's watching, that Hitler did not mess with us. Hitler didn't care what we was. Hitler hated us. Hitler hated us. As a matter of fact, we about to get to how Hitler praised America, like the woman just said, praised America of how he treated black people. So he's praising America how he treated black people. Hitler didn't care about black people one way or the other. He didn't think we were some special group of people and America's doing us wrong, and so therefore America's gonna have to pay in the long run or something like that. Hitler wasn't believing in none of that. Hitler believed that Hitler hated us. He hated us. The Nazis hated us and praised America for how they treated us.
government's racial policy.
species: the Nordics, the Alpines, and the Mediterraneans. All three are good stocks, ranking in genetic worth well above the various colored races. Lothrop Stoddard, Director, American Birth Control League.
Y'all remember American Birth Control League, and this is who Margaret Sanger, who the Democrats, who America holds up in the highest regards. Who, you feel me? They will never let her name fall, right? This is who she was coming up with. This is who she was working with and looking up to. These are these people are saying we should eliminate the black race and the black and red race. Eliminate. They wanted us gone. They wanted to kill us off. And y'all remember this? He's a part of the American Birth Control League.
To eliminate blacks from Germany, one of the people Hitler called on was a eugenicist who had once written that blacks are an inferior race of savages who should only be allowed to survive as long as they are of use to the Aryan race. His name was Eugen Fischer, and about 20 years earlier, he had been one of the leaders of a system of concentration camps in southwestern Africa, where blacks were rounded up to be executed, experimented on, or held as free labor. Under Hitler, Fischer would serve on committees that planned the sterilization of all blacks in countries that came under German control. He would also be one of the first Nazi scientists to become publicly affiliated with the Carnegie-funded Eugenics Laboratory in Cold Spring Harbor, New York. Eventually, Fischer would also be put in charge of the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, which was funded by the Rockefeller Foundation. It was here that many of the Nazi programs for creating racial purity were developed.
Don't Carnegie and Rockefeller names always pop up in everything? Like, they names pop up in everything in history. Their names pop up in everything, in all conspiracy theories. Everything, their names pop up. Everything. That stuff is crazy. Crazy, bruh.
In 1927, Margaret Sanger organized.
Oh yeah, but I also want to say, y'all see how America, how we talk down? The Nazis are so bad. Nazis are so bad. Nazis are so bad. But there was a point in time where Germany and America was praising each other and going back and forth, praising each other on how America was treating the blacks, on how Germany was treating the blacks out there on the Jews. You feel me? Hitler got somebody from America to run the show for the concentration camps, which make me believe Hitler got the whole concentration camp thing from these niggas here in America. Hitler got his whole landscape of how to do. He got his whole blueprint of how to do things from America. And this is all gonna go along. It's all gonna fall apart on how they use the welfare money to sterilize. How they start using the welfare money to sterilize our black women. This is all about to fall in. This all falling in line. But this government is hypocrites. Hypocrites.
The World Population Conference in Geneva, Switzerland, and gave it front-page coverage in her birth control review. The events program shows that several of its attendees were colleagues of Sanger's from the American Eugenics movement. It also documents that among those who were given a leadership role in the conference was Eugen Fischer, the man who would eventually lead the Nazi effort to eradicate blacks from Europe.
Another American eugenicist with Nazi connections was Harry Laughlin. He was an official with both the American Eugenics Society and the American Birth Control League, and in 1928 his plan for using forced sterilization to eliminate those who might produce what he called degenerate offspring was published in the Birth Control Review. In 1936, Laughlin led an effort to distribute the English language version of
Y'all see this? We about to get to it. Forced sterilization. We about to get to the whole idea of that. Let's get to it.
Nazi eugenics film to audiences in the northeastern part of the United States. He had acquired the rights to the film from the Race Policy Office of the Nazi Party and, with the help of 2 other American eugenics organizations, had mailed literature to biology teachers at 3,000 U.S. high schools, urging them to show it in their classrooms. Later that year, Laughlin was praised in a Nazi newspaper and awarded an honorary degree from the University of Heidelberg for his contributions to the Nazi eugenics effort.
In the 1930s, a German psychiatrist named Ernst Rudin was named president of the International Federation of Eugenics in Cold Spring Harbor, New York, which was funded by the Carnegie Corporation. And in 1933, his call for racial purity was published in the Birth Control Review.
Later, Rudin would be chosen by Hitler to write Germany's eugenics laws, and at one point, he personally helped the Gestapo round up and sterilize several hundred blacks, who they referred to as Rhineland bastards. After the war, Rudin would be identified as one of the architects of the barbaric medical experiments that the Nazis carried out in their concentration camps.
I just want to, do y'all notice how they doing everything under the guise of birth control?
It may be possible that Hitler actually got the idea for concentration camps while studying the American eugenics movement. In 1919, the state of Indiana had allocated $300,000 to create a work colony in the city of Butlerville, where those who were labeled feeble-minded would be incarcerated. Then in 1932, Margaret Sanger called for the United States government to set aside farms and open spaces where certain groups of people would be segregated from the rest of society. She proposed that, among others, the illiterate, the unemployed, and the poor should be forcibly kept in these areas until they developed what she called better moral conduct.
It was later discovered that under the Indiana program, the state was allowed to label someone feeble-minded if they were poor or did not do well in school, or if the state considered them to be shiftless or have insufficient moral judgment. But it's...
Y'all remember that? Y'all remember that? Because that's going to be real important when we get to the 70s. Y'all remember that.
Important to understand that this Indiana campaign was not unlike those in other states. For example, a eugenics project conducted in Massachusetts during the late 1920s proposed sterilization for young girls who were diagnosed as defective, which could include being unwed and pregnant, financially poor, or if the state labeled them socially undesirable. In addition, boys as young as 14 could be castrated for showing signs of kleptomania or for exhibiting what was described as solitary behavior.
In a single incident during 1935, the Nazis sterilized the children of over 600 German women because it was reported that those children had been fathered by black men.
When news of this reached the United States, a member of the American Eugenics Society named Walter Ashby Plecker wrote a letter to the German Bureau of Human Betterment and Eugenics, praising them for the action and expressing his hope that not one child had been missed. 10 years earlier, Plecker had written that the black population was the greatest problem and most destructive force which confronts the white race and American civilization.
They got the same fear today.
Eugenics goals
Same
are most
fear.
likely attained under a name other than eugenics. Frederick Osborne, president and founding member of the American Eugenics Society.
Remember what he said, eugenics goals are most likely to be attained under a name other than eugenics. I wonder what that name becomes.
By the late 1930s and early 1940s, revelations about Nazi and fascist atrocities in Europe were causing the public to become increasingly uncomfortable with terms like eugenics and population control. This alarmed the leaders of the American Birth Control League, who were aware that this shifting attitude could impact both their ability to implement their racial agenda and their ability to raise funds. They were also aware that the connections between the American Birth Control League and the Nazis were starting to become known. Marketing research had shown them that in this environment, they needed to move away from words like control in favor of less threatening words like planning. So in 1942, they changed the name of the organization. From then on, the American Birth Control League would officially be known as Planned Parenthood.
Y'all remember? I told y'all remember American Birth Control League. The same American Birth Control League who the dude was over was saying how we need to get rid of these niggas. Saying how if they come up and become competitors, we need to get rid of them. Their fate is sealed. These are the same people who decided to change their name to Planned Parenthood because the Nazis made the word eugenics hot. So they had to change their name. But even though they changed the name, it's still the same people. All the people we just seen, all the quotes that we just seen, they're still the same people behind Planned Parenthood. It don't matter if they change the name or not.
The important thing to understand here is that this name change did not change the organization's agenda. The same people were still in control, they were still obsessed with race, and they were still dedicated to eugenics. Today, defenders of Margaret Sanger will often try to hide her racism by claiming that she was not really a eugenicist and that Planned Parenthood was never part of the eugenics movement. But the truth is that as late as 1956, the American Eugenics Society listed Sanger as a member of the organization. In addition, many of Sanger's colleagues and the people whose writings she published, as well as many of Planned Parenthood's officers, were also known to be members.
In fact, the ties between Sanger and the eugenics movement were so well established that in the 1920s, Sanger pursued a plan to merge the American Birth Control League, or Planned Parenthood as it was later called, with the American Eugenics Society. However, despite Sanger's efforts, the merger plan died after being rejected by the leadership of the American Eugenics Society. As an alternative, Sanger then proposed that the two organizations at least combine their publications into one magazine. But again, that idea was also rejected by the American Eugenics Society.
The eugenic and civilization value of birth control is becoming apparent to the enlightened and the intelligent. The campaign for birth control is not merely of eugenic value, but is practically identical in ideal with the final aim of eugenics. Margaret Sanger, 1921.
What's the final aim of eugenics?
In her autobiography,
I wonder.
Margaret Sanger wrote about a speech she gave in 1926 at a Ku Klux Klan rally in Silver Lake, New Jersey. The Planned Parenthood founder bragged about the fact that afterward, she was invited by 12 other Klan chapters to speak at their events.
At about the same time, the American Birth Control League was changing its name to Planned Parenthood. A lot of books and reports began coming out that attempted to put a happy face on eugenics, and many of them were written by people that were associated with Planned Parenthood. The strategy here was obvious. Since the Nazis had turned eugenics into a four-letter word, the American eugenics movement decided it was time to lay low. So most of their writings during this time period downplayed the role of eugenics and couched their agenda in terms of helping the African American. Perhaps the best example of this is a 1,500-page book by eugenicist Gunnar Myrdal called An American Dilemma, The Negro Problem in Modern Democracy. Interestingly, this book was not the result of some mom-and-pop operation. Myrdal had 75 assistants working on this project whose salaries were being paid for by the Carnegie Corporation, and Carnegie had been a major player in the eugenics movement for many years.
Gunnar Myrdal and his wife Alva were both involved in eugenics. They were funded by both the Rockefeller Foundation and the Carnegie Corporation. They were also closely linked to a Swedish eugenics program which forcibly sterilized 66,000 people. When you read chapter 7 of this book, it becomes undeniable that this is a blueprint for the modern eugenics movement that we still see in the United States today. The bottom line is that Gunnar Myrdal believed that not only could blacks not help themselves, he felt that nobody could help them, and the only solution in his eyes was to get rid of them.
Commonly, it is considered a great misfortune for America that Negro slaves were ever imported. The presence of Negroes in America today is usually considered a plight of the nation. Chapter 7, page 167. All white Americans agree that if the Negro is to be eliminated, he must be eliminated slowly, so as not to hurt any living individual Negroes. Chapter 7, page 168. The only way possible of decreasing Negro population is by means of controlling fertility. Chapter 7, page 170. birth control facilities could be extended relatively more to Negroes than to whites, since Negroes are more concentrated in the lower income and education classes. Chapter 7, page 176.
Wow. So kill them slowly. Kill them slowly. Control their fertility. Right? Kill them slowly and control their fertility. Sheesh. Kill them slowly and control their fertility. Wow. Sheesh. And y'all see how it's lining up. Y'all see how it's lining up.
6.
One thing I find very revealing about Chapter 7 is the first paragraph. Murdahl uses U.S. Census Bureau figures to show that between 1790 and 1940, the black population in the United States increased 17 times. At the same time, those Census Bureau figures show that the white population increased 37 times. However, neither Murdahl nor any other eugenicist wrote anything about what to do about that part of the population that was increasing twice as fast as the black population.
Leonard Murdahl's book on how to resolve what he called the Negro problem was published in 1944 by Harper & Brothers in New York. 4 years earlier, the same company, which is today known as HarperCollins, had also published a book by one of the founding members of the American Eugenics Society. At the time that Harper & Brothers published these books, its president was a man named Cass Canfield, who would later become the national president of Planned Parenthood.
We hope that the restraint of population growth can come about through voluntary means. But if it does not, involuntary methods will be used. Dr. Donald Minkler, 1972.
Donald Minkler was the president of the American Association of Planned Parenthood Physicians and a member of the board of directors of Planned Parenthood Federation of America. Like many of those in the eugenics movement, he understood that their plans would not always be voluntarily adopted, and that the use of governmental coercion or even force might one day be necessary.
The idea of
these are the founders and the presidents of Planned Parenthood talking like this. This is how they started. This is how they started, and their mission is still continuing to this day. They're saying, if it's not voluntary, if they're going to do it voluntary, we will force them to be sterilized. We will do forced sterilization by any means. This is the people that's running Planned Parenthood saying.
Forced eugenics was not something that suddenly developed in the 1970s. In a 1929 speech, American eugenicist Samuel Holmes had proposed that mandatory birth control should be used as a tool to eliminate what he called the menace to the white race that had been created by increases in black population. His solution was to have a quota system in which the right to have a child would be controlled by the government and determined by race. At the time, Holmes was on the National Council of the American Birth Control League, which would later become known as Planned Parenthood.
Then, in 1936, eugenicist Julian Huxley proposed that the genetically inferior classes could be made to have fewer children if they were denied easy access to welfare. Another part of this proposal was that medical care to these same people should be restricted in order to reduce the survival rates of the children they did have. He also called for the forced sterilization of anyone who was unemployed beyond a certain length of time. Huxley was later honored by Planned Parenthood and was a featured speaker at one of their annual conventions.
The reality is that the views of people like Samuel Holmes and Julian Huxley were never uncommon within the American eugenics community. In 1969, a professor at the University of California, Dr. Garrett Hardin, called it insanity to rely on voluntarism to control population. Hardin was a member of the American Eugenics Society and an outspoken advocate of government-enforced birth control, saying that citizens should be willing to give up their right to breed for the betterment of society. In 1980, he was given Planned Parenthood's highest national award. He and his wife would later kill themselves in a joint suicide pact.
There were, of course, some within the eugenics movement who were uncomfortable with the idea of using force, and they would often express their reservations about it in public. But when pressed, virtually none of them would rule it out, including Planned Parenthood founder Margaret Sanger.
I consider that the world and almost our civilization for the next 25 years is going to depend upon a simple, cheap, safe contraceptive to be used in poverty-stricken slums, jungles, and among the most ignorant people. Even this.
Who you think she's talking about back in the 1930s and 40s when she say the jungles and the slums? Who you think she's talking about? Especially when she say the jungles. They was calling us jungle monkeys back then. They was calling us monkeys and everything. So when you say the jungles, who you think she's talking about?
This will not be sufficient, because I believe that now, immediately, there should be national sterilization for certain dysgenic types of our population who are being encouraged to breed and would die out were the government not feeding them. Margaret Sanger, 1950.
This was written by Sanger in a personal letter to Catherine Dexter McCormick. McCormick was an heir to the international harvester fortune and would later use part of her immense wealth to fund the development of the birth control pill.
In 1966, an example of the coercive power of state eugenics laws was seen in Maryland when 3 young mothers applied for welfare benefits. All 3 were arrested for child neglect, even though the authorities never claimed to have any evidence of abuse or neglect. Instead, the women were held under a state law which stated that simply being unmarried and pregnant was child neglect. The judge in this case warned the women that if they ever became pregnant again, the state would take custody of all their children. Officials in Prince George's County, where the arrest took place, stated that welfare recipients could avoid being prosecuted under this law by submitting to state-sponsored birth control education.
Now we're gonna get to the next video. We're gonna actually see some examples of what she just said, how they use, how the government use welfare and everything like that to sterilize these women. On how the government said, oh, you got too many kids with no baby daddy, when the daddy not at home, sterilize. How the government used different things to sterilize our women. And so we're gonna see some examples on that. So we're gonna take it to 1973. We're gonna rewind this back.
By Hitler and Goering. Retarded people, poor people, especially those on...
Okay, so we was just in the 1930s, the 1940s, 1950s, 1960s. Now we in 1973. Now we done heard how Planned Parenthood started. We done heard how eugenics started and everything like that. How they didn't know the Negro dilemma. How they didn't know after slavery what to do with these Negroes. What they didn't know what to do with our ancestors, right? And so they tried to promote white people having more babies to overpopulate us. They have so many babies, they overpopulated us. They tried different methods, but none of the methods worked. They tried to leave us alone. That method didn't work. So now the method is we got to kill them off. We got to do population control. Now, they was working with the Nazis. America, eugenics people, and the Nazis were working together, praising each other. The Nazis got caught up, and the world started looking at the Nazis crazy because everybody found out what they was doing to the Jews, right? So eugenics became a horrible word to say. Eugenics, you couldn't say eugenics. That was a bad word to say back then. So they changed the name up. They changed it to Planned Parenthood. So now we in the 1970s, and then we heard about the forced sterilization and how that all started. So now we're in the 1970s, and we're going to see how all that happened, developed all the way to the 1970s. We're going to see what happened. We're going to see some real examples of women getting their tubes tied or forced sterilization because of welfare.
Guidelines designed, says Weinberger, to make sure that government money is not used to sterilize someone who consents to such an operation without fully understanding just what is involved, and that is, a man who has been sterilized cannot impregnate a woman. A sterilized woman cannot bear children, although for neither are the pleasures of sex diminished. The new guidelines are prompted by charges that federal funds were being used to sterilize persons without their consent. Retarded people, poor people, especially those on welfare.
I told y'all remember those key words. Y'all poor people, retarded people. Y'all remember those key words. They was talking about those key words back in the 1930s and 40s. We in 73 now. Y'all remember.
The whole business of sterilization stirs up memories of a quarter century ago.
The Nuremberg trials after World War II shocked the world as details of Nazi Germany's eugenics policies were documented, disclosing how compulsory sterilization was used by Hitler and Goering to pursue their concept of a master race. Well, now, only a quarter century later, the idea of compulsory sterilization is getting attention again as one possible solution to assorted problems in the United States.
You see how this is important why we went all the way back, because the man glossed over the history of how America and the Nazis, which we just learned, was praising each other and working with each other. America was giving Hitler the game on how to kill people, on how to do mass extinction. You feel on extinction. We was giving them the game, but he glossed over that. He just went from Hitler to, oh, now we doing this all over again. No, America been doing this. So we didn't get this from Hitler, the Nazi. This been in American blood.
Those who support sterilization today see it as one means of easing the problems spawned by overpopulation and dwindling resources. It is not a question of improving the breed, they say. We just don't want so many babies, especially not so many among the poor, and certainly not babies born to mental defectives. They point out that we already have 6.5 million retarded, that almost 8 million children have to get financial support from the government, and that we cannot afford more. At least that is the view of some who have studied sterilization for a long time. One such is Dr. H. Curtis Wood of Philadelphia. He has been an obstetrician and gynecologist for 40 years.
I can see the day coming where if things continue to deteriorate, such as the energy crisis and pollution, all these other things, where the American people themselves will decide they've got to limit their growth rates, and they will perhaps insist on the government passing a law which says no one, rich, poor, black, white, intelligent, retarded, whatever, no one can have over 2 children.
About half our states have laws authorizing compulsory sterilization for persons classified mentally defective. And now some state lawmakers see compulsory sterilization as a partial solution to the welfare problem. Not one of the half-dozen states where such a law has been proposed has bought the idea yet. But that does not deter new sponsors. One of them is Gene Damschroeder, Ohio State Republican representative.
If a woman has more than 2 fatherless, illegitimate children,
right,
then, and she puts them on public welfare, that you and I got to pay the bill, then she has to submit to sterilization.
And so you're saying to those that are getting the free ride, if you have illegitimate kids, or if a father walks away from his kids that he's fathered, sterilize them.
Yeah, if he doesn't take care of it, if he doesn't want to take care of his responsibility in this world,
sterilize the man, sterilize the woman if she's had more than 2 illegitimate.
Y'all see how these people are? And it's the same. They saying the same talking points of what those people were saying back in the 1930s, 1940s, what Margaret Sanger then was saying back then, what Hitler then was saying back then. These are the same talking points these people are saying. So, but I'm about to fast forward because we about to see some examples. I want y'all to see some examples of this. So we about to fast forward. Because this wasn't ideas that they were just talking about. This was really going on.
In the sterilization suit against the state of North Carolina filed last summer by the ACLU on behalf of Miss Cox.
When they performed the sterilization operation on you, after you had your child,
right,
what did they tell you?
She says to me, it's a temporary tubal...
Ligation?
Yes.
Temporary tubal ligation, which means, of course...
He said, I can have more babies.
Did they tell you at that time that they were regarding you as a mental defective?
They didn't say anything to me about mentally defective. I didn't see no kind of other doctors, no Eugenics board, no nothing. I didn't see nothing. Only the doctor and his caseworker. They never took me in front of no people.
Miss Cox, sterilized at the age of 18 in 1965 after the birth of an illegitimate daughter, is still angry at what happened.
I want to say one thing. I am not mentally defective. I am not stupid. I have all my faculties. I have held a job for 5 years at Hempstead General Hospital. I have no problems. And I don't see why, how can the doctor say that I am mentally defective? He has no reason to say this.
You had one illegitimate child, right? Your family was on welfare, right? And they told you that if you didn't have that sterilization or that operation, they would take all of you off welfare.
They is gonna punish my family for what I did.
Miss Cox agreed to the...
You see what I'm saying? They was about to take her whole family off welfare. And then they lied and said she was mentally defective. I told you, remember those words, because we heard the word in the last video. We heard defector or something like that in the last video. So all they had to say was you was mentally defective. And they sterilized. Then we'll threaten you if you don't get sterilization. We're gonna take you off of welfare and your whole family. Now we're gonna get to some more examples. Let's get to some more examples. We're gonna start right here.
How do the people in your parish feel about these doctors?
I'd say 90% of my people would agree with it.
Hospital records show that 67 Medicaid patients were sterilized here during the past 2.5 years. Many of the townsfolk approve of limiting the size of welfare families. They see it as a local physician's duty to help ease the welfare burden. Last week, a woman pregnant with her 5th child complained that she was refused treatment because she declined to be sterilized. After that complaint, 2 other
67 women were sterilized at the Medicaid office, bro. Look at what they doing to our women. 67 women. If y'all remember from the last video, you couldn't get welfare money if the man was in the house. My bad, y'all. You couldn't get welfare money if the man was in the house. Now you can't get welfare money unless you get sterilized. Crazy.
Other women have come forward. Mrs. Dorothy Waters had 6 children when her husband left her 4 years ago. Last year, pregnant again, she went to Dr. Pierce. Sterilization was suggested early in her pregnancy, she says, but she charges it wasn't until the week before delivery of this baby that Pierce applied pressure.
He said, listen here, young lady. He said, this is my tax money. And he said, just paying for this. And he said that I am tired of these ladies going around here having these illegitimate children. And he said that my tax money paying for it. He said, if you didn't want this done, he said, and you just find yourself another doctor. He said, well, I will not deliver your baby.
It's entirely up to the individual. It's their body, and he shouldn't be able to tell them what to do with it. That's the way I feel about it.
Carol Brown, 30 years old, mother of 2 girls and 2 boys. Another child is expected in October. Seeking a doctor earlier this month, Mrs. Brown called all 3 obstetricians in Aiken. The answer from each office was that since...
Shout out to Aiken, South Carolina. Let's get it. One time I went to Aiken, the Aiken College out there. It's pretty lit up there, I ain't gonna lie. But shout out to Aiken.
The Browns are on welfare. The opinion of each doctor was that 3 children are enough.
I couldn't get anyone to take me as a patient if I didn't consent to sterilization. They told me that their policy was that if I had 3 or more children, they requested sterilization before they would take my case. We both love children, and when we go any place, we usually have ours and someone else is with us. We just love children, and it's just a matter of circumstances now that we're in the position that we're in.
His wife says Brown is a good provider. They've been on welfare just 5 months and will be off the rolls when he's out in August or September. Brown says he'd like more children, says he can and will support them. Mrs. Brown now has a doctor. She went to a physician in Augusta, Georgia.
Oh, so white girl dude's in jail, and she her baby daddy in jail. They told her, yo, you can't have no more kids. You got no more kids, but we about to go to another example, and this is the last example we gonna look at.
I hope they'll let them do that for you. What's your brother's name? Lake. Y'all swim down there? Y'all better be careful.
Minnie, did you want to have the operation?
No, sir.
Do you want to have children?
Yes, sir.
Was it embarrassing for you when you went?
These are little girls. These are little girls that they sterilized. Little girls that they sterilized. They haven't had the opportunity to have sex to have kids.
You went back to school?
I don't think so. Yes, sir.
How did you feel about it after the operation was over and you had found what they'd done to you?
I felt bad. I felt kind of bad. After I got through taking the operation, it was sore a little bit. When I woke up about 4 o'clock that evening. Then when I felt the pain, it was pain. And then she came in and gave me a shot. Gave me 4 shots.
Did they ever tell you what they were doing to you?
No, sir.
Did it hurt you?
She said it hurt when she woke up. Then when I...
All right, my bad, y'all. We was having technical difficulties with my laptop, but I got it straight. I think we left off on this part, so we're going to get back to it. Let's go.
Ain't said nothing else about it. And then they started operating on when we was when I was down at my brother's house. They came down there and got me from down there.
Were they giving the shots to other children here?
No, sir.
Why did they pick you out?
I don't know.
If the lady told you that the shots were to keep you from having children and there was no problem, why did you agree to it?
I don't know.
Were you...
What type of question is that? You can see right now in these little girls' faces that they are scared and terrified. These people took them to the hospital without their and they took them to the hospital and put them under surgery, sterilized them without their parents' consent. Forced them to get them shots, forced them to get shots. Like she said, the people was coming every day to give them shots.
You frightened of the lady?
Yes, sir.
Why were you frightened?
I thought she was going to give us some shots. That's why I was scared. I thought she was going to give us an operation, then I was scared.
Did you ever talk to it? Did you ever talk about it to your mother and father?
No, sir.
Why not?
No.
She didn't even say nothing to her mom and dad. Her mom and dad didn't even know that they gave this little girl this surgery. The little girl didn't even have a chance to have sex. The little girl didn't even have a chance to have sex. Didn't even have a chance to have kids. She's still a little girl. These are still 2 little girls. They didn't even get a chance to do it. And they went ahead and sterilized her. Sterilized her. And this is what they was doing all around the country in our neighborhood.
Minnie, do you know what they did to you when they operated on you?
No, sir.
You still don't know today what they did to you?
No, sir.
Can't have children?
I don't know. I don't know.
How many children would you like to have?
One.
Why just one?
I don't know.
Did you know what they were going to do to you?
Yeah.
Well, if you knew, why did you go?
And it's so sad because all she wants is one child. And she not even gonna be able to have one child. And then if y'all remember in the last video when they said they deemed y'all mentally ill or something like that. Now we see what the other little girl is going through. So they probably seen her like, oh yeah, we about to make quick work off of her. She definitely getting sterilized. She got a numb for her right arm. She looks kind of mentally ill. This is off-wrap sterilization. They did these two little girls so wrong.
Go along. Why didn't you resist? Mr. Dees, what's the real significance of this lawsuit?
I think the significance of it is the method used for birth control, particularly where it involves poor people, in particular poor blacks. There are much less drastic means of population control and birth control than permanent sterilization.
What about these people here?
David, these people are so used to having white people come up to them and say, do this, do that, or do what. And when they were taken down to the hospital and were told that they were going to have an operation, particularly these girls, they simply just did what they were asked, and they did it.
Sterilization has occurred in Alabama?
Well, this would be something, we're trying to find this out. We asked the court to require family planning agencies throughout the state to provide us with this information. And we asked the court to enjoin all sterilizations of minors in the state of Alabama until this case is terminated.
Now, y'all got to remember, I thought this was in South Carolina, but this is in Alabama. Now, y'all got to remember, this is 1973 Alabama. 10 years ago, it was 1963. 20 years ago, it was 1953. You feel me? Only 30 years ago is what? 1943. So y'all got to understand, we all know what black people was going through and the fear tactics that white people was using on black people back then. So, of course, these little black girls is going to be scared if these white people is coming up to them saying, yo, you got to do this, do this, do this. All they going to say is okay. They're going to be terrified. They're just going to say okay. Like, we ain't going to get shoot. Black people act like that now. They be scared to speak up now when it's a bunch of white people around. And white people tell them, yo, do this, do this, do that, do that. They feel like, okay, I'm just going to go along with it. People are scared to speak up now. So I can't even fault two little black girls for not speaking up and not wanting to get the surgery. We're going to see what the parents got to say about this, because they ain't showed the parents yet. What the parents got to say about this. Because the little girl said she didn't tell her parents about what happened. So what's going on?
Why do you think they did it to them?
I didn't know. I wasn't even at home. When I come back.
Dad said he wasn't even at home. He asked him why they did it. Why do you think they did it? He said, I don't know. I wasn't even at home. I don't even know what was going on. When I came back, what?
They had done carried him down the hospital. That's all I know. I didn't know what they was going to do to him. They said it was going to give him shots. But I didn't know what happened. After then they had to operate on when I know.
You didn't want the operation?
No, I didn't want the operation. Because so they didn't have some children.
Mrs. Ralph, what did...
Pop said, I didn't know what was going on. I just got home. I just got home. They said they was in the hospital. They told me they went and got some shots. I didn't know what surgery. Then when I got home, they told me, they giving the girl some shots. And then next thing I know, they getting surgery. They coming out the surgery. They didn't tell the parents what they was about to do. Let's see what the mom got to say.
Come that Monday and told me they was gonna take them down and give them shots.
Here we go with the shots.
What do you think about what has happened?
I don't think about nothing until I know them thing they had them get operate on them. I went back up there the next morning.
Do you want them to have children?
Yes, and I want them to have children.
Why did they operate on your children, do you think?
I don't know why they operate on them.
Have they ever been a problem for you?
No, they haven't been a problem to me.
Why did you allow the people to come out here and give them shots if there were no problem?
I didn't allow them to come out here and give them to them. I don't think the lady told me she was going to give them shots.
I'm real fluent in down south speaking. Y'all heard, I know what she said. She said, man asked her, why you let them give the shots to your daughters? She said, I didn't let them do anything. They came down. The lady said, I'm going to give them the shots. This is the fear tactic. I didn't say nothing. I didn't know what they was doing. I didn't want them to give them the shots. The lady came down and said, I'm going to give them the shots. I didn't want it, but the lady forced it upon me. And as we know, the title is Forced Sterilization of Welfare Mothers. You feel me? The first example we looked at, if the woman didn't get sterilized, they was gonna take the whole family welfare away. So I'm thinking, I don't know, I was just thinking, in my brain, they probably said, in order for y'all to continue to get this welfare money, and I'm thinking, I don't know. Then your daughters is gonna have to get sterilized, or we're gonna have to give them. They're gonna have to continue to get these birth control shots. That's just my opinion. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. They kind of being around the bush with this example, but I don't know. Let's get to
it. How were you treated by the lady?
I wasn't treated no way, but
she had to ask your permission.
Well, all I know, she told me that she's gonna said they wasn't gonna give them no more shots out here. They're gonna take them to the hospital and give them shots. That's what she told me.
You didn't go with your daughters to the hospital?
I went out there, but I didn't stay. I told them I couldn't stay.
I'm not gonna lie. The way this conversation is going and the way this lady is looking, she looks real nervous and she looks really scared. And they not telling the full backstory behind this whole little thing that's going on with this family. I feel like a whole lot more done happened than what they really telling in this interview. I could just tell from the way the two little girls was talking, how they look scared, and the way how the mother looks scared, and how she talking. And when the man keep asking her, why you let this happen? Why you let this happen? She tell him straight up, I didn't let this happen. The woman just came over and said, this is what we gonna do. Y'all see the little, they forced, like I said, forced sterilization. But they not telling the full story.
They out there with them.
What did you first think when you learned what really had happened to your daughters?
Really, what happened, what I think happened, I didn't know nothing about it. They didn't even tell me nothing about it. They was going to give them an operation.
But after the operation was performed and you found out about it, what did you think then?
I didn't think anything. When they took me back up that morning, they had to operate on me. They was bringing me out back up on the stretcher.
There was shock last month over the revelation.
Wow, so she left. went home and came back and found out her daughters had surgery on them. She found out her daughters were sterilized. So on top of them getting birth control shots, they went ahead and go ahead and, you know what, we're just going to do this little surgery. We're going to nip all this in the butt now. We're going to make sure we're going to make sure your daughters have no kids. Because there's a chance you can still get pregnant off the birth control shot. But so we're going to go do the surgery. We're going to make sure your kids have no kids growing when they get older. We're going to make sure y'all do not populate. And for all the people who thinking population control is just some conspiracy theory, this should show y'all population control is real and it's thriving till this day.
That the state of Virginia sterilized thousands of persons between 1922 and 72 in a program aimed at ridding the state of so-called misfits. Now it develops that similar programs were carried out in some 30 states. David Dow reports from Los Angeles.
Documents collected from state records indicate the vast majority of the sterilizations took place in 12 states, with California accounting for nearly a third of the total, more than 20,000 between 1909 and 1963. Most of them before 1950. In a single California mental institution, Sonoma State Hospital, about 5,000 operations took place, according to records. The patients included epileptics, the mentally ill, or those labeled mentally deficient.
It may seem ludicrous to us now, but at that time, people believed that those kinds of behavior patterns themselves were things that resulted from your genetic past.
The genetic theory is used to just.
We're gonna go to the next video. We're gonna go to the next video. But this just shows that population control is really real and it's thriving right now. And that was a crazy story. I ain't gonna lie, I wasn't expecting all. That was a crazy story. Wow. But we're gonna fast forward all the way to the 2000s. We was just in the 1970s. We're going to fast forward all the way to the 2000s. We're going to the last example we're going to show.
I was molested, raped. My life was threatened when I was 13 years of age, that if I ever told anybody, the guy told me that he was going to kill me. I was totally afraid of the guy because the guy had been in jail most of his life from the time he was 14. At this time when he raped me, when he molested me, he was like in his 20s. I believe he was like 11, 12, 13 years older than I. He was a grown man with a family and children of his own at this point here. I didn't know I was pregnant. Somebody had told my grandmother that they thought I was pregnant because nobody never told us about having babies, or that was never discussed around us, right? So what happened was, I went into the hospital to have my son, and the next thing I knew, I woke up and I had bandages on my stomach. Nobody never told me what it was, and up until maybe 2007, I realized that I had a cesarean, and when they went into me, they sterilized me at the same time. Going back before 2007, I got married. I left North Carolina when I was 15, moved to New York. I got married when I was 18, and my husband and I tried to start our own family. Prior to that, I kept getting sick. I kept hemorrhaging. I kept falling out, passing out, and I kept going into the hospital.
If y'all remember, we was just seen those two little black girls. The oldest little black girl was saying, she was falling out, she was dizzy, she was bleeding a lot. Y'all remember that? Now this woman in the early 2000s is saying the same thing.
And anyway, the doctor told me that I had been butchered. It did not register to me what she meant until I was referred to another doctor to see if he could, reverse the sterilization procedure that they had did on me. And he also told me that I had been butchered. Butchered meaning, then I realized that I was sterilized because he explained to me what had happened, that why it was impossible for me to have a child is because they had cut, clipped, and tied my tubes and burned them. So I tried to have it reversed, but it never worked.
And this is what they did to our women. This is what they did to our women. Matter of fact, hold up. I got one more example. Hold up.
Sometimes, the only thing more difficult than running a business is finding the right.
I got one more example, y'all. Matter of fact, we're going to end it right there. Thank y'all for tuning in. Please like, please share, please subscribe. This is crazy. And always remember how they systematically took our fathers out the home. And remember how they systematically is committing genocide in our neighborhoods. Always remember, after slavery, it's called the Negro Dilemma. Remember, they was trying to figure out what should we do with these black people. First thing they thought about, let's send them back to Africa. That didn't work. Second thing, let's leave them alone. That didn't work. Third thing, we gotta kill them. Let's kill them all. But we can't just go out and just kill them all. We can't just commit mass genocide right then and there. We gotta kill them slowly. We gotta kill them so slowly that they not even realizing what's going on. Then let's put a woman as our front man. The Nazis made the word eugenics hot. The Nazis made population control hot. So let's change the name. What name should we change to? We should change the name to Planned Parenthood. Now we seen in the early videos how Margaret Sanger felt about black people, who they said is the founder of Planned Parenthood. We seen that she felt like our population should be controlled. Our population wasn't even worthy to have babies. So we see the forced sterilization going throughout the years because these people feel like we weren't worthy enough to have kids. So then they put these little programs and policies down to where if you got like the one black woman said, she got like three kids, a couple of different baby daddies. The doctor said, I'm not about to deliver this baby for you. If you're not gonna get sterilized, I'm not about to deliver this baby for you because I'm a taxpayer and I'm tired of y'all women just having kids and this and that. Then you got the other woman saying that they told me they would take the welfare from my family. They would take my mom's welfare. They'll take all the welfare from the household if I don't get sterilized. Then we just seen what they did to the two little black girls. And then we just seen what they doing in the 2000s now. So we gotta wake up and understand that this enemy wants us dead. Matter of fact, I got a whole new video. I got another video to show y'all. Cause I had a conversation with my niece yesterday, and she's really big on the Palestine thing. I'm happy for her. I'm proud of her. She's really big on the Palestine thing. She do all the little protests that the little millennials and stuff be doing. She doing all of that. But she talk about it every day. So one day I asked her. I said, what you feel about Planned Parenthood? She said, it's all right. It's cool with me. I said, do you know the history of Planned Parenthood? She said, no. I said, do you know who Margaret Sanger is? She said, no. I said, did you know that Margaret Sanger did not like black people? Also, she followed and looked up to people that was in the eugenics who Hitler looked up to. And their whole goal was to eliminate black people because they didn't know what else to do with them. So now we get Margaret Sanger, who in the first video we watched, the dude said the Democrats put up in such a high regard. Now we about to watch this video, the very last video, and I think this lady's gonna say a Margaret Sanger quote, and she's gonna ask the teenagers, the college students, yo, you know who this is? Watch. We're just gonna watch. We're just gonna watch it. We're just gonna watch it. We're just gonna watch it. Freaking commercials.
Hi, I'm Ophelia Jacobson with Campus Reform. We've seen so many talks about race and racism in recent weeks, and we're here today at the University of Florida to talk with students about one example they may not know about, Planned Parenthood. How will students react when they find out about Planned Parenthood's racist founder? Let's find out. So over the last few weeks in this country, we've seen a movement to remove racist historical figures, institutions, and statues. Do you agree with this movement? Should we be doing that? Yeah, I completely agree with removing Confederate statues and any racist landmarks if they have a negative history.
America has like a really toxic past, and we shouldn't be like memorializing that.
I think it's good. I think as a country we need to progress past like idolizing racist figures.
Okay, so I want to give you a quote that was said by the founder of a really prominent institution in this country. I'm going to read you a quote and get your reaction, okay? "We do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population." This individual also once spoke at a KKK meeting. How do you feel about this quote?
I think there's no question how I should feel about the quote.
I think that's bad.
That's just so obviously wrong.
I think that he shouldn't be a founder of any institution.
I can't believe someone said that.
He should be held accountable, or she should be held accountable for what they said.
Stop being racist. To exterminate any human being is not okay. He should probably be exposed for that.
It's racist.
The worst part is there's several people who are currently in power that I can guess made that quote.
Who do you think made that quote?
Of course, my first thought goes to Trump.
Why do you think Trump is racist?
If literally anyone looks up anything about Trump and things that he said, I think it's a safe conclusion to draw.
You can say that about Margaret Sanger, whatever her name is, but let's continue.
Do you have any direct quotes about that? Like any direct quotes that he said?
I don't know any quotes off the top of my head, honestly.
So what about the organization? What should be done with the organization?
I think there should be like maybe an investigation.
I don't think that the entire organization, everyone associated with it, can be, in a sense, canceled, but I definitely think that there should be actions taken to mitigate the way that their founder has acted.
Should we even be funding this organization if that's what the founder said?
And they should definitely like look into what the organization is promoting and whatnot.
Just them excusing something like that would be racist.
People as individuals need to like really decide for themselves if they want to support it or not. But I know I definitely wouldn't if the leader said that.
So what if I were to tell you that this quote was actually said by Margaret Sanger, who is the founder of Planned Parenthood?
Dang, all right.
Did you know about that?
No, I did not, but yeah, they should do something about that.
It makes me feel nauseous.
I'm actually surprised. Well, I mean, Planned Parenthood is usually a very liberal and inclusive organization.
You see what she said? She said, I'm actually very surprised. So obviously she didn't look up who Margaret Sanger is. And then she also said, you know, Planned Parenthood is very liberal and things like that. As black people, we got to watch out for that word liberal. Because liberal, that's who comes to us and say, we could help you. We could help you with all these programs and this and that and Planned Parenthood. We could help you with Planned Parenthood, with Planned Parenthood. They always come with help, and that help always backfire on us. That help never helps us. The help never helps us when the liberals always come and say, we could come and help you with these programs, like Planned Parenthood.
I kind of actually knew that Planned Parenthood was founded in kind of in a selective breeding kind of thing. There's definitely problems within that, because I know black babies are aborted at a way higher rate than white babies.
If I were a supporter or not a supporter, what she said wouldn't.
Did y'all hear that? He said black babies are aborted more than white babies. And if y'all remember, we went in the second video we watched. When the man said, put the clinics in the black communities. And you wonder why more black babies are aborted than white women. But I'm just saying, then white babies. This is their whole plan. They thought this shit through since the 1800s.
Really change it. I'm sure that there's many people under that founder that care about Black lives.
Like, I agree with what Planned Parenthood.
What she just say? Hold on, we about to. This is the black girl talking. This is what I'm talking, man. These new millennials, these new black millennials be irritating me. I ain't gonna hold you. They fall for anything. They let anything ride. For real. Hold on.
If I were a supporter or not a supporter, what she said wouldn't really change it. I'm sure that there's many people under that founder that care about Black lives.
Like, I agree with what Planned Parenthood is doing, but I definitely don't think someone like that should be a leader.
Well, I actually do stand with Planned Parenthood. The abortion rate for black women is 5 times higher than white women. Can an organization that says they support Black Lives Matter really say that if, their founder, she said that their goal is to exterminate the Negro population? I'm actually going to cut you off right now. I want this interview done.
It shouldn't really.
Why you want the interview to be done? When it got real, when the quote says we gotta exterminate the black race, and then she hits you with the facts where Planned Parenthood is aborting more black babies than white babies, and it's correlating. Now you want to say, matter of fact, let's end the interview. Why? Why you want to end the interview for? Like niggas stop. Now you want to end the interview when it's time, when it comes to us and us hurting. Now you want to say, nah, I'm good. I'm still going to support Planned Parenthood. I'm still going to support the killings of black babies. Hundreds of thousands of black babies get aborted every single day. And now I'm thinking after watching these videos, I'm thinking a lot of women probably don't even know that they babies is getting aborted. These doctors probably telling them they having a miscarriage or something. In real life, they probably done aborted the baby. They probably done gave him a pill or something, abortion pill, thinking, and they telling the woman it's a whole nother pill or something. It's facts, bro. I know that happens. I know that happens for a fact. I seen it happen.
They matter, like who has abortions more. I think abortions should be available to everyone.
Someone else should step up to the plate who's more accepting and who resembles what Planned Parenthood says they stand for, which is lives.
When you say that Planned Parenthood stands for lives, what do you mean by that?
Like they help women make their own decisions. I've had a good experience with them, and they like to help others. As long as that the organization itself isn't being racist, then we can't really go after the organization itself for it.
I still definitely support Planned Parenthood.
I do think Planned Parenthood is important and needs to continue on.
So these are the new generation of people that support Planned Parenthood. And even after the fact that they found out that the founder, the front runner of the Planned Parenthood is racist, and even after the fact that they was told that Planned Parenthood aborts more black babies than white babies, they still say they support Planned Parenthood. We just learned the whole history of eugenics and Planned Parenthood and the people that was over Planned Parenthood all the way up to Margaret Sanger, and none of them like black people. Even after Margaret Sanger died, the president in 1969 or something like that, the president of Planned Parenthood was talking like, yo, we got to get rid of these black babies and these red babies. When the black people, I'm going to tell y'all this, and I'm going to end it here. Nobody cares about us. We all we got. We all we got. We the only people we could depend on. And if we don't get it together, we are going to be destroyed. These people are trying to kill us. Slowly. And they got a whole plan set out for it. They slowly killing us. They even got it to where they made making black women feel like it's cool to have an abortion. But don't tell black women is A lot of people, a lot of black women who get abortions, that fucks up their stomach. That fucks up their whole shit. After that, there's a good chance you may not have another baby. What they don't tell black women is, yo, black women, y'all are the number one in getting abortions. We killing thousands of thousands of thousands of thousands of thousands of thousands of black babies. Don't get me wrong. If it's a life or threatening thing, if it's life or life or death, I mean, you feel me? Something like that. If it's a rape thing and you don't want that rape that child or something like that, if it's anything like that, I'm cool with an abortion or something like that. But when it comes to when y'all force sterilization, when y'all forcing abortions, when y'all forcing young black women to get sterilized, that's where I got a problem. Because y'all making it seem like it's a choice, but it's really not a choice. It's really not a choice. Now, you know what's crazy though? Now we find out that white women is struggling to have kids. White women are struggling to have babies. If y'all go look it up now, every other race is population is going up, but white people. White women are struggling to have kids. This is why you see the anti-abortion stuff now, because they scared that their population is dwindling, and they scared that it's gonna be the same fear that we learned from the second video, the same fear. They scared that their population is going down. It's gonna be taken over and ran over by the so-called savages, us. So they did something drastically and said no more abortions. This is life or death for them right now. They fighting for it. White people is fighting for their life right now. That's why they done turned the whole tune of abortion around. That's why it's like, nah, fuck that. Nigga, y'all niggas ain't getting abortions. And you feel me? If we gotta sacrifice black women not getting abortions, that's just what we're gonna have to do, because our population, we struggle, we desperate right now. But never forget how this all started. Never forget how it all started. Because if we forget how this all started, we're gonna continue to do the whole cycle over and over and over again. Over and over again. But thank y'all for listening. I'm out of here, man. Thank y'all for listening. Please like, please share, and please subscribe, man. I love Black History. I'm gonna do more Black History stuff, bro. And shout out to Black Love Infinity Smoothies, man. For real, for real. I'll see y'all later.